I consider Alexandria Occasio-Cortez to be in the similar vein of politician as I do Donald J. Trump. Now, this might seem controversial to some of you. What are you talking about? AOC is nothing like Trump, or Trump is nothing like AOC, depending on where you are. But that is what I'm talking about in the social political sense. The way people look at her, refer to her, treat her is a similar way that some other people look at Trump, talk about Trump, and refer to Trump. And to me, the most positive thing about these people, I am an anarchist socio-politically, so I understand the state for the nature that it is. But these two individuals have enabled people to look at the state in a way that they weren't able to do before. Because some of the politicians that were doing it before were little more seasoned politically. They were more conniving, there was more of the statecraft in them, not necessarily deep state, but it was what they chose to do. So they understood the rules of the game. They understood that you say certain things in certain ways, you don't talk about certain things, you don't draw attention to certain things in certain ways. So what is it that they show us? On one end, you have Alexandria Occasio-Cortez, a true Neiman Marxist. I'm not going to take credit for coming up with this term. I heard it while listening to the best podcast in the world, the No Agenda Show, and then created some art based off of it from my X Lives Matter series, and I'll get back to that. But on the other end, you have Donald J. Trump, who highlighted what a Republican in name only actually is. Most people say, oh, these other people are rhinos, and that's why they weren't listening to Trump. No, 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 no. Trump himself was a Republican in name only, still is, and he probably will still run and probably still win, because the Republican Party itself has been Republicans in names only for quite some time now, and this is something that has been exposed to a lot of people who truly thought that they themselves were Republicans. And you can see people on both sides of the aisle, people who are supporting saying, oh, we need to do more Republican things, and then people on the opposing side, this is what Republicans do. Then you look at the reality of what Trump actually did, was trying to do in the system that he was in the party, with expectations, and you really wonder, is this really the reality of what the Republican Party is, what the state is, what we expect from XYZ? The primary way I mean this is that AOC, Donald J. Trump, they act, they say things in a certain way, they do things in a certain way. We all sit there and look at it. And then some people take the things entirely too seriously and ignoring the actual things that they're doing. They take them too literally and ignore the figurative, or take certain things that they literally said and say those are entirely figurative. I think those are key things, because that is a key thing of what politics is. Politics is, what are they literally doing versus what do they figuratively say? What do they figuratively say they're going to actually do, or was a cause for that, versus what was literally actually done? These are key things of politics, and I think these two individuals, recently, haven't thought of too many people who've actually shined the light on this aspect of politics that much. And I think a higher extent to why these two people are very specific and precedented in this sense is because even if you are ostensibly on their side, there's still situations where you will have many people on their side still going in this situation. Oh, they didn't really mean that. No, they really meant that. Oh, they didn't really mean to do that. Oh, they really meant to do that. Off of the same sort of things. And problems occur not because of what X is, but because of how we define X. And I think these two individuals are helping people define and understand what the X of the state is more so than anybody else before. And this is not just limited to the individuals themselves. Yes, it takes certain specific individuals to be at certain times for certain things to actually happen. But to be here in the information age, you've had great personalities and things like that in politics before, but to be in the information age and have this access to actually get to and talk to people out there, to have other people actually access and see and know about what people are saying about you, what you say in your personal time, what your thoughts are, and what the things and the whatnot, to actually understand what X is. That is something unique about not just the time that we live in, but also the United States of America with its supposed with its supposed respect and valuation of the freedom of speech and sharing of information. So we can discuss the strength of this, but there actually is something that does exist here, and that is the ability to go around the usual suspects, the usual controllers, the central parts that were controlling the information, the infosphere. You can tap into that on your own. AOC has a way of reaching to people on social media. Donald J. Trump had his way of reaching to people on social media, going outside of the typical, we're going to watch the news and then the news is going to tell us what we think about the news, and the news is going to tell us what exactly is important, and the news is going to tell us about how the news was actually. So it's just the news, the news, the news, the news, and then you had a relationship with the politicians who were in relations with the news and sharing them and giving them sources and things like this. But these two people broke out of that paradigm, and they are kind of outsiders. AOC, from just virtue of she was not in politics, she was a bartender. That was her previous job right before becoming a politician. So she wasn't involved in that whole machine. But she came up in a time, and then now she's a primary part. She's a face of a certain side of the politics in the United States of America. Similar with Donald J. Trump. He'd been aware, he'd been in other things, and you could definitely tell this is a true outsider. This is not a Barack Obama type of outsider. This is not one of those more, I think, you can even say like a Ron Paul type of person, because not that he's necessarily the same, but he was looked at, oh, this is somebody come from outside, but he'd been involved in politics. Yes, his thoughts and ideas are definitely not the same. It's definitely not like a Bernie Sanders who has been able to just know his lane, know his grift, know what he's in there. I've heard somebody give an estimation about Bernie Sanders and say, I don't actually think he's running to win anything. He's running essentially just to keep running, keep his name out there, be a lifelong politician. And it seems that way. How many things has he actually proposed? What are the actual things that he's actually done? When has he taken a stand on things? If you know some of those examples that I don't, let me know. So now back to the whole Neiman Marxist thing that I'm doing with this video. What is a Neiman Marxist? Take somebody like your Bernie Sanders. Yes, he started, oh, we need to tax the rich. I can't do a Bernie Sanders voice. I don't know. He's talking about getting taxes the rich. The rich don't pay their fair share. We need to get the millionaires. Then he became a millionaire, and then now he moved to the billionaires. And you see that sliding scale type of thing. But what has Bernie Sanders actually done and achieved politically? Now, do you think Alexandria Occasio-Cortez is somehow more Marxist than a Bernie Sanders, with knowing Bernie Sanders' history of coming in, studying the content, being out there advocating, going in, living in communes and things like that, living off of the state for this long? Do you think she's more of a communist? Do you think she will achieve more of that? Do you think the public in general is actually more open to the ideas of communism and socialism now than they were when communism and socialism didn't have all this long history of failures that people can actually be aware of? When people now are more aware of things like the Holodomor, which back in the 60s and the 70s and things like that were just unheard of. People weren't hearing about these things. Even as low as economic information and economic knowledge is, I know the economic awareness I had about just general world global economics, even just small local economics when I was in high school, when I was in my 20s, is a lot less than what it is now, but that's because of going out and finding this information. So this info is out there. Do you think the world right now is more susceptible to that messaging than it was in the past? I say no. And I don't see Alexandria Occasio-Cortez being a situation where Bernie Sanders has been in politics. How long? Let me check. It says here he was part of the Liberty Union from 1970 to 1977, and then he was an independent from 1978 to present, with some stints in the Democratic Party of the United States of America. Of course, when he was running for president for them, he had to enter that party, which is 2015 to 2016, and then 2019 to 2020. So do you think Alexandria Occasio-Cortez will just be a lifelong politician like Bernie Sanders? And I think the answer is no for most of the people who would actually be listening to this. So for sure, she is a politician. She's an active politician. She has a lot of following, but it's actually shown, another thing it's shown, how much is just a show business in politics, how close she is to just a celebrity, how close she is to just an actor. It's a show. It's show business. There was a whole idea where it's like, okay, the ugly people enter politics and the pretty people enter Hollywood. Now that line has meshed. You see just the relationship between Hollywood people and politicians together. And then there's actually attractive people. Like Alexandria Occasio-Cortez, you might say certain things about her appearance. I like exaggerated features, and in that aspect, she has some exaggerated features. She's also fit. I think she's objectively attractive, even if she wasn't a politician, even if she wasn't famous and all those things. But knowing her personality, knowing the things she actually puts out there, that makes her less attractive. But physically, just aesthetically, she is not a horrible looking person. And despite what you say, there's certain things with appearance that are actually part of politics. Think about how Trump's appearance was treated and talked about in a certain way. Oh, you can make fun of his appearance, you can make fun of him being orange, you can make fun of his hair, you can make fun of his mannerisms, his tie, all these things. But then now, if you mention anything about AOC, the same people who were making fun of Trump will all of a sudden say, "Oh, no, this is horrible." And this is the things that I'm saying are showing people. Having these two people transposed together, existing in this same time, gets to show people things about politics in a way that they hadn't seen before. That has always existed to a certain extent. And the key thing with this, as an illustration, if you're watching the video version of this, should be an illustration going on the screen for the cover, is when Alexandria Occasio-Cortez recently went to the Met Gala, which is this big, it's an actual costume party, and she went in with this really expensive dress with the designer there that says "tax the rich" on the back of it. And people are like, "Oh, I can't believe this money. Oh, I can't believe AOC. Ah, she's going to this thing with $30,000 tables." I'm like, what do you expect? This is what politicians have been doing all the time. She's just doing it out in the open. And it's also a costume party. When people in there, Kim Kardashian was completely covered in some all black thing. What did that say about Kim Kardashian? Oh, she's really supporting the Taliban and the people, and she's glad that is that what she said? When who's it? Lil Nas X was wearing something, so he had 3 different costume changes. One of them he looked like Goldar from. People say he looked like Goldar from Power Rangers, or in Chevalier de Zodiac, the Knights of the Zodiac, which is this anime. What's this? Like Saint Seiya. That's the anime's name in Japan and things like that, manga. But anyway, so either of those two. But is he really that person? Other people are actors. They're dressing up in costumes. There's themes. And to see this, I was like, look, she's wearing a tax the rich dress at a costume party, because that is a costume that she puts on. She is not really that person. Do you really imagine if there was actually some situation of some governmental situation putting people aside, she would be standing in front of like a Tiananmen Square like the Tank Man? Do you imagine she would go and wear that dress and finally I'm going to stand up against a big machine and I'm going to stand up there and say, no, I'm going to stand up for the people. I'm going to stand up for the little people and stand in front of these tanks coming down the road to actually shut down these businesses and stand up for the worker by standing there in my tax the rich. She would never do that. She's in that to be one of the rich. She was glad to be at that occasion wearing a costume. And I think the other people there saw her. The other people realized, and like, yeah, we're actors too. We're putting on costumes too. We're in this game. We see you. The unreal recognizes the unreal. The fall recognizes the fall. When you are in the industry, when you're in the business of the show business, you understand what's going on. We're going to show our faces, and the business side of it, the behind the scenes, is covered up, wearing the masks. That's their place to be. We have the exceptions. We are the talent. We are the front-facing people. That was a perfect actual environment for her to display this kind of behavior, because this is a key thing of what Neiman Marxists have been, are, and will continue to be. And it's something exceptional about the United States of America that nowhere else can a Neiman Marxist truly exist in this kind of way. And now, with the Neiman Marxist thing, there's a link somewhere here to the actual post I have on my Behance account and some things I wrote up to explain what I thought the Neiman Marxist thing was fitting for, and was actually a fitting thing and behind this designs and drawings. I might put some of the drawings up, but you can see the design on the actual dress that she's wearing out there. Switched out the tax the rich with a Neiman Marxist. And this is what I said on the post that you can go check out for yourselves. So, the Neiman Marxist is a relatively well-off collectivist that uses Marxist tactics for social aggrandizement. They do not envision themselves as decision makers in a theoretical future utopia. They are not part of the proletariat that will overcome past oppression and be the foundation for the future. They will not engage in actual boots-on-the-ground activism of combating the oppressive system, but feign support for those that do. They do advocate for a supposed greater good to attain a personal sense of accomplishment and assuage any guilt, valid or not, for what they perceive to be unearned privileges. In praxis, rather than rescind any of said privileges, they demand more. Neiman Marxism is focused on gaining a higher social credit score within desired in-groups. When one cannot ignore challenges to their positions, they will credit any of the fruits of market economies to their supposed cause while obfuscating the bloody cost of communism. And this is related to champagne socialists. And that's what these people would normally be called, champagne socialists. And deal with people based off of their actions. We even lie to ourselves. Subconsciously, we tell ourselves untruths, misinformation. We disinform ourselves. We misinform ourselves, even when we have the best intentions. So what are the actual actions of the people? Alexandria Occasio-Cortez did go to college, and she is an economist, but what about her actual actions makes you think that the economist that she is is anything close to the definition of economy that you have, or that she is aware of actual economic speaking and language. Like, I'm more a fan of the Austrian school of economics. There's no way she's actually okay. Actually, there's a way she could possibly have actually studied that stuff, agreed with that stuff with Mises and Rothbard and Hayek. Hayek to an extent. Some people would be a bit critical about including Hayek into stuff like that. But Road to Serfdom is an amazing book. But then people like Menger, going back to von Baum-Bauwerk, might be saying that name wrong. Some other more contemporary names like Hans Hermann Hoppe, or things like people like Thomas Sowell and people like that say. She wouldn't be able to sit down and talk. Okay, again, she might be able to actually sit down, know that information, and then still go out and lie and act like they're not doing this. But we've passed classes where we've studied things and we can't remember what we studied. So even if she actually had studied the stuff, what in praxis shows you that she actually believes any of those things? Very little to nothing, right? So what makes you actually believe that she is a Marxist? What has she actually done in her life to make you truly think that that democratic socialism that she's into, or the Marxism that she says she's into, or all these things that she claims she's for, what makes you actually believe any of those things are true and it's not just an act? It's not just saying things to say things. And why wouldn't she do these things? Some people may enjoy bartending. Some people don't. She personally was given the chance to become a congressperson from New York City and be given this platform. Get access to the security, get the millions of followers, get the fame, fly around, be a powerful person, be named by these people. She was being tweeted at by the President of the United States of America. I think even Donald Trump was tweeting about AOC even more than Biden has now. Maybe Biden's thinking she might take some of my shine away. But anyway, so she was given that. A lot of people will tell far more lies and mistruths and misinformation for far less than what AOC has actually been awarded for doing whatever it is that you think she's actually doing. And my estimation is that she's actually acting. She's not an actual Marxist. And now let's get back to other things on this Neiman Marxism. That's the first Neiman Marxism that I was talking about right here was this the colorway with just the plain, just the gold. This is the actual Marxist. This is the actual stuff that you actually see. The true dyed in the blood, true people who know what Marx was saying. Those are the people who are actually in there. So this is just for the people who just say, oh, we're Marxists. Hey, you're not really Marxists. So now the next one is the political variant. Now this is the red colorway with things like that. Now this variant focuses on the politically active Neiman Marxists that at times choose to identify as democratic socialists, left-leaning libertarians, and other sorts of workers' partisan. One can be sure to find them in the ranks of union leadership, especially those in or related to the public sector, commonly heard asserting that the eventual results of collectivist praxis were not examples of true socialism and or true communism, which of course has never been tried. However, if they ever were to be tried, you can expect the results to be akin to the mostly white Scandinavian countries that are toad socialist and not at all like those person of color countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America that at times literally have socialist and or communist in their names of their state governments. And that's what you have here. That's what you have with Alexandria Occasio-Cortez and the squad and the other people. They're not actually there. They've just understood that it's actually a grift to actually get in there. And that's Bernie Sanders also in this group. They just ignore all the bloody history of it. But hey, it's just we're politically Marxist. We're politically activist. We're politically democratically socialist and collectivist in this kind of sense. And that's what they go with. Now the next one, which is a little more common, well, you might say it's common, but is it quite that common? Because you can actually see the actual Marxism that has been attempted in places like Africa and the destruction that's actually led to those places. Now, this next sort of Neiman Marxist, if they truly were, they would talk about that more. But I hardly hear them talk about the actual issues in Africa that have happened from Marxist actual policies, the actual experience that actual African countries had with this. And there is a difference between black and African. Elon Musk, Charlize Theron are African Americans. They are not black, though. So I do understand, and I don't expect them to really care, but sometimes they claim to care, and I'm just like, you don't care. So now this variant focuses on the race hustler Neiman Marxist, whose fashion of the current season is Black Lives Matter. The grift is paramount above any allegiances to whatever supposed cause a movement espouses. They will speak of the need to improve conditions for the, quote, community, end quote, And just as an aside, whenever I see community said by these kind of people, I just read it as commie unity. It's just about commie unity is what they're talking about. So they'll talk about the conditions for the quote community end quote, whilst positioning themselves as gatekeepers to said community support and the funnel that any external support from allies must pass through. They tend to avoid vying for political office due to the amount of scrutiny on their background, candidacy, and campaigning would bring. The chance to start and or found businesses which produce goods that may directly generate the means to impact the economic handicaps they claim their communities suffer is frowned upon. This avoidance is due to the market's ability to provide the sort of empirical evidence about what the society at large values that they cannot easily obfuscate through rhetoric. Now just look at the people, Patrice Collars, what's her name? I think it's like D-Ray someone. I think he's still involved with Twitter in some aspect. Then you have, what's his name? Sean King, who's kind of disappeared from the place. Think about some of these people. If they actually went to run for office, part of why you could have AOC out there is she has pretty much no actual background out there doing certain things, having any activism before she actually came out to be an actual politician. Now, when you actually look at about her stances as a politician, you look into her background and you start seeing, are you really from a really negative place? Who are your relatives? What? And this is when you get into the public sphere, these are things that are more open to be discussed. And imagine the Patrice Collars having to go out there, run for office, and then they go back in history and they start finding, why did you say you were Marxist here? Why did you say you're anti-American here? Why are you spending money here? Why do you own this? What did you do with this money? These are things that people actually check. Whether or not you actually think with someone like Donald Trump, or he's actually gotten away with certain things, he's been scrutinized. And what have they been able to come up with? A few things that other people related to him did. What has actually stuck on him? Do you think these hundreds of thousands of hours put in, the millions of dollars looking into him, haven't actually found some things that are not there? How do you think that's not there? So what do you think you'd actually be able to find with a Sean King? What do you think you'd actually be able to find with a Patrice Collars? That's why these people stay out of the actual political sphere and they just make declarations, but they never actually enter politics where they would actually be tested. They never actually enter the actual private business world where they would actually be tested with the results. Look at what happened to someone like David Hogg entering the whole like my pillow type of thing. Oh, I'm going to have this kind of pillow, we're going to go in, and that's completely failed. They don't want any of that noise. It's a lot more. The grift is actually enough to make millions off of just activizing for these kind of things, saying the words, and that's enough. Now, the next one that we have here is the variant that focuses on white people TM-centric issues. And they can be found unironically tweeting that Antifa is just an idea between seeing what new grants and programs their favorite ivory tower institution is currently offering to add to or compare against their credentials. They agitate for a supposed greater good to attain a personal sense of accomplishment and assuage any guilt, valid or not, for what they perceive to be unearned privileges. If they choose to act in any actual demonstrative sense, they will tend to do it only if a level of anonymity can be attained. For most of their visible practice, this is now out there talking in public, supporting it, tweeting things out and things like that, rather than rescind any of said privileges in these actions or ways, they demand more, claiming that through being a spokesperson for the cause, they have earned the right to use and enjoy all the privileges and wealth that they have accrued. So that's it, coming to the end of this. That's why I added Hassan Piker to this. That's why I added the Texas Taliban to this. Because the people can't really mean the things that they say. Because look at their actual actions. How many times are you going to hear somebody talking about the socialism, talking about Marxism, talking about collectivism, and then they're just collecting those bags and just enjoying them, and they just go laughing all into the bank. And people sit there ringing like, oh, I can't believe they're doing this. Why is she doing this? Why is she saying tax to the rich? She doesn't mean it. Stop behaving like she means it, because she's not actually doing any actions that show that they mean it. Hassan Piker has been on the Young Turks for some time. He's doing an act. He's going on TikTok. He's going on these things. He's accruing money from this. It's an act. Why do you actually believe that he believes those things? Why do you actually think that? With the Texas Taliban, when I actually got it, I was like, y'all are seeing what's actually going on. But then are people actually seeing what's going on in Afghanistan? Because people were believing whatever they were being told by the state. And the M5M, MSM spokesholes, whatever was being told to them, they were believing it. Yes, everything's okay. Our government tells us it's okay. They say one thing, but they weren't able to actually see what was actually going on. Because if people had actually seen what was actually going on with the state and actually defined these things for what they are, they wouldn't have fallen into this shock and awe that this is happening. If people truly thought that the United States of America was a horrible place, then they would be a bit less shocked about people falling from planes to get here because they realize, they know, they would actually leave themselves. These people don't leave. If they truly believe these things that they say about the United States of America, why would they just stay in the United States of America? Where do they think is better? What do they think they can actually do to do more besides just going on TikTok and these things? Besides tweeting Texas Taliban? Can you really know what do these people actually think of Texas? What do they actually think of the Taliban for them to do this? If someone tweets that, do you really think they believe that? I don't think they do. And that's why I'm doing this series. Because it's a costume party. It's the Met Gala. It's these people flossing. It's this wealth. It's this thing. And then people look at these people with the masks and the things like that. And we just sit back and look and say, are these people serious? Are you serious? What do you seriously believe in? Why are you judging? What is the empirical evidence that you have to base your belief that these people are as dangerous as they are? Some of the things they actually advocate for are garbage and horrible. And if I actually thought they truly meant that, I would be more apprehensive. I would be more worried about them in particular. I'm worried about the actual content. I want to focus on the actual content. Get away from these people. These people are people who are going to be selling things that you don't want to buy anyway. This is a similar thing. Like, again, Kim Kardashian was there. If AOC hadn't been there, Kim Kardashian might have been somebody that we were talking about more with this whole event. But when it comes to someone like Kim Kardashian, she's a good example of what the United States of America is. Their family came up, they're involved in the OJ trial, then she came up, and then there was a sex tape, there's some discussions of whether the mother was involved in this, but from that she was friends with Paris Hilton, and then all of a sudden now, she's a millionaire. That family has generational wealth, and there's a lot of kids. They've all found a way to do it. There is nothing Kim Kardashian is selling that I want to buy. But at the same point, there was a time when I was like, why are people interested in this? Yeah, I was like, it's kind of vapid. It's not really much here. But she's selling a product. Her family's selling a product. They're doing something. They're not forcing anyone to do things. That's one of the positive things I think about them. But they're not forcing anyone. But one thing that I don't understand is why certain people are so against people like Kim Kardashian. Like recently, Deborah Messing was an actress. She came out and she's like, why is Kim Kardashian hosting SNL? Like, people know me come on and they're promoting a movie or an album or something. Like, she's trying to pretend, these literati trying to like jockey for position and pretend they're so much better than other people. I'm like, no, Kim Kardashian's on the grind. She's been acting all the time. She's been doing, her life is the actual product that she's putting out there. You, Deborah Messing, you come out and you do some few shows here and there, and then you say, oh, I want to be private in my private life, and then when I'm promoting something, I want to come out and care about me, and now on Twitter. No, Kim Kardashian has been doing that grind her whole life. That's what they do. Like, mad respect to that. I don't want to buy anything that they're selling. But I don't understand why people who don't want to buy anything that they're selling seem to be so upset that these people are choosing to sell certain things to other people who are choosing to pay them for other things. I don't go out searching out Kim Kardashian's content to throw grime on them, because that's not what I'm selling. But these kind of people will always exist. These people, whether you consider them charlatans, whether you consider them actually selling something of value, they're out there, and there's going to be people who are going to serve them. People are going to keep giving Hassan Piker money. There was another person, I think the Bernie Sanders dancing kind of girl person, boomer girl or something. I think her name's Nicole. She was also somebody who got $1 million help. Like, this happens with these people. These people are giving them money. I think one of the differences with AOC possibly would be the fact that as a state official, she has an aspect of control in the institution that is defined by its monopoly of coercion and violence over any given area, of legal force, of using legal force. So some of the things she says might actually lead to actual actions. But how many actions has she actually done? I think there's a lot of people who are in politics who have actually decided, wait, people like AOC, we can work with her. We can maneuver her around, and she can be kind of the pretty face that we put there as we're doing things behind. She's always on the news. She's always, people have a certain amount of political energy to focus on. And while you're focusing on AOC, Nancy Pelosi is in the back with Chuck Schumer and all those people doing a lot of things. While people were focusing on Donald J. Trump, Mitch McConnell and what's his name, Lindsey Graham, they were in the back doing other things, doing other machinations, because they're the professional politicians. They're the people who are in it to do it. Just like how Bernie Sanders totes out, and then he gets people on the left activated, and then they just have to vote for the actual party because the party mechanism comes in. That's the same thing AOC will be continue to be used for, to just continue to have you rage at this person. So don't waste your energy focusing on her like she's actually serious. The things she says, if she actually believed, would be very serious, but the actual effectiveness of her is not that true. Her going out to the Met Gala in that outfit showed people how she is actually somebody wearing a costume. And problems occur not because of what X is, but because of how we define X. And I think once people start defining AOC for who she is, Damsel Bay, just this pretty face that has some thoughts, has some activities, and I could be entirely wrong. Maybe she's going to be a political genius and come up and achieve all these other things that you may like or may dislike. But I haven't seen that yet. I have no reason to believe that that would happen. She just seems too visual. But to me, the key part is people looking at the system, people seeing new eyes on the system, and that is a positive thing for me. So keep doing what you're doing, AOC. Like the dress, like it even more than her immigrant from Canada, a designer, and owed back taxes and things like that. Because when it comes down to it, she doesn't want to pay more taxes. Nobody really wants to pay more taxes. If they really did, they could actually just go out and give gifts to the government. People are always going to do this. They're going to say one thing and do the other, but focus on the things that they actually do. These are key things to focus on. So that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe, wherever you're watching this. More content coming soon. Most of my stuff right now, content will be conversations or things where I'm focusing on some art in there, trying to include that, and might spread and separate the conversation channel into a separate project I'm talking to my friend Steven and other people. But yeah, this thing's coming up. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think AOC is serious? Do you think I'm taking her not seriously enough? Have you thought of some of the things that I mentioned here before? Let me know. Till next time, goodbye.